The national organization League of Women Voters descended directly from the suffragist movement. Today there are active chapters in communities across the country. Sue DeNio from the League of Women Voters, thank you so much for joining us. First question, I guess, would be, how historically is the League of Women Voters tied to the women's suffrage movement?
It came directly from it. In fact, it was organized 6 months before the ratification of the 19th Amendment, as people who'd worked for decades got it organized. And part of the argument that women should not have the right to vote is they didn't have the mental capacity to do that. How could they possibly know the intricacies of all of this to be able to vote? And so the League of Women Voters was organized to prepare them to be good, solid voters who were knowledgeable about their issues and get it ready so that there could not be that, I suppose, the kind of clapback of, see, we told you, you didn't know what you're doing. and so it's all become about educating women to be knowledgeable voters.
Mm-hmm. Has the purpose and the mission behind the League of Women Voters changed over the years, or has it remained pretty much the same as that original focus?
I think it's stayed pretty much the same. I think if anything has changed, it's been attention to including minorities into the fold early on. In fact, it just has come out in the last year that one of the main leaders publicly spoke for white supremacy. And the black suffrage movements in the early 1900s and the parades weren't allowed in the parade because they didn't want to antagonize any white voters. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an ongoing thing, but I would, certainly recently in the last few decades, I would say, very intentional of making it a wide umbrella. Mm-hmm. And that's politically too. It's not just one, bipartisanship is a very strong piece of Women's League of Women Voters.
Are you seeing a lot of young women who are interested in joining the organization these days?
I am always surprised and pleasantly surprised. I'm of Facebook friends of young women who are saying, join the League, because if you want to get political change, this is, get involved, get people registered to vote. And I think in the last 4 years, we've had a lot of younger women come in, mm-hmm. Active and ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been very involved with Minnesota History Day, which engages students in choosing topics to study and do presentations and boards on. Are young people still interested in the 19th Amendment and the suffragette movement?
Every year we have a lot. Or the people, male and female students will come. I want to do something to do with women's rights. And gay rights is another one that's a big topic that they want to do something about that. This year in Duluth, we had a high school student from East who got our first ever national championship from Duluth Public Schools. And her paper was on the person who wrote or was the instigator of Title IX. Mm-hmm.
Now, as you look at the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and women's right to vote and talk with women today, what work do you think still remains to be done?
Well, the first thing is not to take anything for granted. Things that we thought, when I go back to my History Day projects, you have to show what the long-term impact was. I think things that we thought were long-term impacts that are done are now in question again. Voting Rights Act information. Lots of women's rights, period. Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of things, so not to take it for granted. And then as it's coming out now, especially with the Black Lives Matter, is get involved. Don't just say, oh, it's just the local election. Well, now we know what a difference it makes who your governor is, mm-hmm. Who your attorney general is. Or who your judges are. It's important, and to get out there for all levels. So, registering them when they're in high school, as soon as they turn 18, making sure that they make the effort to get there.
So what do you think the next 100 years will look like in terms of empowering women?
Well, I think we're going to see more women in elected positions, in leadership positions. So 100 years ago, they didn't think women had the intelligence, that they needed to be protected, that the language of the Declaration of Independence says it's all men, it's not women. We're kind of getting past a lot of these things. So I think, well, it's hard to imagine what our country will look like in 100 years. So, but I'm hopeful that there'll be more women along the way, and maybe 100 years from now, it won't matter at all. It won't even be like, so what, male or female, we don't care.
Well, Sue DeNio, League of Women Voters, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking some time to visit with us and share some insights.
All right.
Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.